Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be reacting to Corey Pronman's of the Athletics 2022 NHL mock draft. Now a couple days ago, we reacted to Bob McKenzie's final rankings and the craziness inside the top end of the draft for his rankings, but I was linked this article and told it was even more crazy than what Bob McKenzie had to offer. And with Corey Pronman, it's a lot of the same things as Bob McKenzie's rankings, where he'll go through a bunch of people throughout the NHL, a bunch of scouts throughout the NHL, talk to them, get their opinions on different players, and he'll end up making the picks based off those opinions by scouts to where these guys might go. So it is pretty accurate to what scouts are thinking right now in the NHL. But when it comes to this Corey Pronman mock draft, where will all these players go and which players go inside the top 32? Watch till the end for the full reaction and make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are new. 50% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you like hockey content and draft content, this channel is the place to be. Now again, I wanted to go into these rankings fresh, so I have not seen any of these picks. I have not seen where Corey Pronman has all these players, so we're gonna go in blind. And again, I was told it was pretty crazy, so we'll see what happens in this mock draft. We're only gonna be going through the top 32. He has all of the 7 rounds in terms of this mock draft, so if you want to see more, definitely go check out the article. Highly recommended. But let's start out with the first overall pick. Again, NHL mock draft 2022. Corey Pronman picks all 7 rounds. Today I will attempt to project how all 225 picks in the 2022 draft will go. We are 1 week away from Montreal being on the clock. So let's go into the first pick, first round. I'm guessing this will be Juraj Slafkovsky. Guessing this will be Juraj Slafkovsky, and it is. To the Montreal Canadiens, Juraj Slafkovsky goes number 1. Trying to pin down what Montreal will do the first overall pick has been a challenge. There are quite a few people in the league who believe this pick will be Shane Wright. However, based on discussions with people in the league over the last few weeks, the winds seem to be blowing in the direction of Slafkovsky, to the point that I think this is a slightly more likely scenario at the number 1 slot. So, again, we heard Bob McKenzie putting Slafkovsky number 1 on his board. 5 out of the 10 scouts had Slafkovsky number 1, with only 4 out of the 10 scouts having Shane Wright number 1. But this is the first mock draft that we've seen where somebody's talked with scouts, talked with people throughout the NHL, and has actually predicted the Canadiens to take Slafkovsky first overall. And I've been over this quite a bit. To me, I think Wright is the much better option and the much better fit for the Montreal Canadiens. You see time and time again over really the past decade, so many teams have that 1-2 center punch that gets them to the cup final and gets them the win. And to me, the Canadiens would be foolish to give up on a player like Shane Wright, who can be such a great overall centerman and such a smart one too at the NHL level. Slafkovsky would be good and he brings some size, but to me, there is still some question marks there. And to me, I do think he needs to round out his speed and skating ability before he's that top line centerman or top line forward that a lot of people think he can be. He, I think, will be a top 6 forward, but he's a player that I don't think has the ceiling of Shane Wright. And I know that's been discussed quite a bit, but to me, in terms of actual projectability and actual potential, I still pick Shane Wright over Slafkovsky. The physical tools are great with Slafkovsky, but I also do think with Shane Wright, there's a better player there in the mix, and as a centerman, to me, that's just what I value more on an NHL roster. So he has the Canadiens picking Slafkovsky number 2, and to the Devils, his next pick here, he has the New Jersey Devils selecting David Jiricek. So he says, why is somebody calling me? What the heck? If the Habs take Wright, I think for the Devils, it's a simple scenario that they take Slafkovsky. If Slafkovsky goes number 1, it opens up the possibilities. League sources seem somewhat skeptical they will take Wright, or at least they don't view this as the likeliest scenario. The most common scenario proposed to me for New Jersey was Slafkovsky going first, is the Devils taking one of the top 2 defensemen, Jiricek or Nemec, or trading the pick. Jiricek is the most common name I've heard attached to the Devils between the 2 defensemen. So there you go. Apparently, if New Jersey isn't going to trade the pick and if Slafkovsky isn't available, they won't end up selecting Wright, which I think would be a mistake. I think in almost all situations, you should take the best player available, and you could just trade Wright unless, I guess, the value is so low for him that he's dropping all this way. And then going on to number 3, what is going on here? Okay, this is pretty crazy. The Arizona Coyotes take Logan Cooley. Now, I've had Cooley go into Arizona. I think we all pretty much assume that Cooley will go to Arizona no matter what. But if Wright is available to still take Logan Cooley, let's see what he says here. I'm unsure what direction Arizona goes in should the draft play out this way. I could see Wright, I could see a defenseman like Nemec, or I could see the Coyotes going in the direction of Cooley. People in the league have given me mixed opinions over whether they think Arizona would go Cooley or Wright in this scenario. There have been the odd mention mention of Cutter Gauthier to Arizona as well of league sources. That was one thing I was talking about in that Bob McKenzie ranking, that imagine Gauthier going to Arizona with him being so high in that ranking. And apparently there have been some discussions there. And you guys know in my rankings, the only player I would take above Shane Wright in any scenario is Logan Cooley. But even then, I don't have many situations where I'd have Cooley over Wright. But the Arizona Coyotes do take Cooley, and on paper, third overall, Cooley is a fantastic pick, but giving up Shane Wright is insane. Now, the top 3 is over, and again, according to people that he's talking to within the NHL, Shane Wright is not in the top 3 right now. So let's go on to number 4. Seattle has this pick, and let's see if he actually will be the pick here. I'm hoping so. And there is Shane Wright, a picture of him. And there you go. Shane Wright, 4th overall to the Seattle Kraken. I see you racing to the comment section over Wright getting to number 4. Should Slafkovsky go first, though, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities in the first few picks. I could see Wright going in any of the first few spots between 1 to 4, and if he starts to slide, I think it ends at Seattle. If Cooley is available here, I would also view that as a strong possibility. If the draft goes more chalk, then the 2 defensemen and Gauthier would likely be the considerations here. So that does make sense. Again, for Seattle, this would be the absolute steal of the draft automatically. Imagine having a 1-2 punch of Beniers and Wright. That's the 1-2 punch that Montreal needs and gave up to select Slafkovsky apparently in this mock draft, but Seattle will get the last laugh for sure in that. And then going on to number 5, the Flyers end up selecting Cutter Gauthier. I think Philly's pick will most likely come down to Gauthier or either of the 2 defensemen, Jiricek and Nemec. I've been hearing Gauthier's name more than the others as we get closer to this draft. Yeah, Gauthier's been one of the biggest risers over these past couple of months because of his size and that shot and that overall offensive ability. To me, I don't think Gauthier is that high and worthy of being that high, but I can see why people would love him as a player that's going to be just this great middle 6 player in all situations that can put in great defensive results, be solid on the power play, be good with that shot. There's a lot to like with Gauthier, so I don't hate it inside the top 5. It wouldn't be my pick because I think his potential is way lower than some of the other players you might see in the top 10, but at the same time, that's an NHL player and a good one that you're getting pretty much automatically. Then going on to number 6, the Columbus Blue Jackets select Simon Nemec. That to me makes a lot of sense. I think for Columbus, if he's available, they definitely go after him. There's been a somewhat consensus group of 6 forming as we approach the draft between Wright, Slafkovsky, Cooley, Nemec, and Gauthier. I presume Columbus will take whichever of the 6 are left, but I wouldn't put it past this group to deviate from the consensus. That is true. Columbus has done a lot that has kind of been off the board, but I think Nemec would fit them very well in terms of a puck-moving, dynamic, offensive, transitional player. To me, Columbus would absolutely stand to love a player like that. Although, you already have guys like Orensky and a Boquist on that defense. I think Nemec would fit quite a home there. And then you go on to Ottawa at number 7, and Matthew Savoie. This is a pretty fascinating pick. I was not expecting that. Putting down Ottawa at number 7 has been difficult. The only intel I've had on their pick of late has been some buzz linking them to the Winnipeg Ice Kids in Savoie and Conor Geekie. Savoie, Joakim, Kemell, and Marco Kasper make the most sense in terms of the types of players they value. I did have one source recently tell me not to rule out Jonathan Lekkerimaki here because someone has to score their goals. That is interesting, though. I've not really been predicting Savoie to Ottawa, even though I think it would be a great fit because of his size difference. But if the Sens are going to go past their draft plan of drafting these big burly guys, I think Savoie would be a pretty amazing fit there. So if that does end up happening, I think that'd be a pretty big win for the Sens overall. Then going on to number 8, and the Detroit Red Wings selecting Marco Kasper. It feels like everyone presumes Detroit is going to take Kasper, which probably means it's not going to happen. The pick makes too much sense in terms of talent, positional, and stylistic fit, though. If it's not Kasper, I could see Kemell or Savoie here. So that's the thing with the Sens. With the Red Wings. Their pick has kind of been all over the place for me. I've had in the past them going for Lambert, in the past going for Savoie, but they end up picking Marco Kasper, who's one of the most raw, maybe not the most raw, but one of the most clear centermen in this draft. He's going to be a centerman. He's going to be a middle 6 guy. He's going to bring great intensity, solid work ethic, and really good positional play. I think for the Red Wings, it's again another maybe lesser potential player, which isn't really in line with what I see with most of their drafts, but I would say at number 8, it's not the worst pick in the world. It wouldn't be what I would make, but for the Red Wings, they need middle 6 centerman, and Marco Kasper would be that guy and would bring an intensity that I think Yzerman would definitely like. At number 9, for the Buffalo Sabres, Jonathan Lekkerimaki. Not surprisingly, I think Buffalo will be looking to add skill and offense to their picks. The names I've heard heard most often are Savoie, Kemell, Kasper, and Lekkerimaki. That makes sense for the Sabres. I think Lekkerimaki fits them quite well. One of the best goal scorers of this draft. One of the more in-tight players. One of the best slippery players of this draft. I do think there is some question marks in Buffalo's system, whether he'll be able to add that physical size, whether he'll be able to push play a little better. We'll see what happens, but I could see alongside a centerman like Tage Thompson, or maybe even a better fit like Dylan Cousins, could be pretty good for Lekkerimaki, especially on the power play. I would like to see that. Next up to the Anaheim Ducks, Kevin Korchinski, left-handed D of the Seattle Thunderbirds. I didn't have great information on Anaheim's preferences at number 10, but I know a lot of Ducks personnel were spotted at those final Seattle WHL games. My bet as a defenseman is the pick at number 10, whether it's Korchinski or Pavel Mateychuk, so that makes sense. I mean, I've had Lambert being their pick in the past. Mateychuk was one player that was floating with Anaheim quite a bit, but Korchinski, I think, would make quite a bit of sense for what Anaheim looks at for defensemen. High pace, high octane offense, one of the most exciting players of this draft, let alone defensemen, and he's a guy that can move the puck well, transition beautifully. There is some big question marks defensively and physically, but at the same time, Anaheim has drafted players like that in Drysdale in the past, and I could see them going for the same type of prototype there too. At number 11, the Sharks select Joakim Kemell. That's an interesting one. I really don't know if they pick another forward. I don't really see that. I see them going for a defenseman, or at least going for more positional need. I mean, Pavel Mateychuk, I think, would be a beautiful fit. So interesting that Kemell goes 11. But if he drops that far, I could see the Sharks picking with that spot. At number 12, the Columbus Blue Jackets, with their own pick, select Conor Geekie out of the Winnipeg Ice. If Columbus gets Jiricek and Mets at number 6, it opens up all the possibilities here for several options, such as if one of the top wingers falls, or if a top center option like Geekie. If they get Gauthier with the 6th pick, I feel like this one almost has to be defenseman like Mateychuk or Korchinski. I would assume that as well. Conor Geekie is an interesting fit in Columbus. I mean, they already got tons of centermen in that group, like Sillinger coming up and Ken Johnson coming up, but they are going to put him in that center position. So Geekie is a weird one. I'm not even sure really how well he fits what they're trying to build. Columbus is kind of this weird team where they've drafted so much skill and speed, which has kind of been against what they've been preaching in their style over the last decade. But Geekie's more in line with that kind of John Tortorella style, where the skating might not be there, the IQ might not be there, but there is some great skill with his passing. There is some great positional play there. But I just think of Geekie at number 12. It's a reach, but I could definitely see that happening. At number 13, the New York Islanders taking Nathan Gauthier. Okay, one name I've heard is trending with several teams as we get closer to the draft is Gauthier as a big two-way center who enough teams believe has legit offense to go high in the draft. That is something that I say good luck to if you're the New York Islanders. That would be my kind of, I would say this, that would kind of be my, oh man, that would kind of be my Tyler Boucher type of complete reach. I think Gauthier has some decent, obviously the size is great, the physicality is fantastic, and I think he uses that so well in his game, but I don't see nearly the amount of offense to go 13th overall. He's definitely going to go in the first round sometime because of that size and how he uses it, but at number 13, that would be, I would just say that would be an L of a pick by the New York Islanders. At number 14, the Winnipeg Jets selecting Pavel Mateychuk. That makes sense. As an offensive D-man, we know that they want to go in that type of direction. Mateychuk would fit beautifully in Winnipeg's system. At number 15, the Vancouver Canucks select Noah Ostlund. I like that pick. As we've gotten closer to the draft, one name I've heard league sources say I need to move up much higher in my mocks is Ostlund, who many in the league feel it will be a top 20 pick, if not higher. He would add a lot of speed, skill, and playmaking to the Canucks, who need depth at center. I like that pick a lot for the Canucks. I think that fit is pretty solid. They've obviously have a little bit of a need there at center, especially if they're going to trade JT Miller. In the system, though, Noah Ostlund as a Swede would be absolutely beautiful with Vancouver. He, to me, would fit amazingly into that style of offense they're going for right now. And obviously, you guys know I love Ostlund. I have him in my top 10. He's the most exciting player of this draft, bar none. Can make so many moves out of nowhere that just get you off your seats. To me, I love that speed. I love that quickness. And I love that release and offensive playmaking and creativity. There is some problems there in terms of his transition play, and I do think he'll have to get a lot more size to him and a lot more bulk to him to really dominate at the NHL level. But if you have that skill, I want to bet on you, and Ostlund at number 15 would be a pretty solid pick. Number 16, the Buffalo Sabres go for another big one, Danila Juraj at number 16. It feels like a lot of people in and outside the league are picking Juraj with the Sabres pick. I do think it's a strong possibility, but if they went in the different direction, I could see Ostlund here too. I mean, with the Sabres, they're not really afraid to draft Russians. I'm pretty sure they drafted Kisakov in the second round of last year, if I believe, was the pick. And for the Sabres, I mean, Juraj is a huge wild card for me. When he gets more of a sample size, I'd like to make more of a read on him, but he barely played this year. And when he did, I think there was some lack of projectable skill, even though there is some high-end talent there. At number 16, though, I mean, that's not the worst bet in the world. If he pans out, that is a solid middle six offensive player for you. At number 17, the National Predators select Liam Bichsel. There is a pressing need for defense in the Pred system, and the draft will likely line up where several good defensemen make sense in terms of talent, such as Bichsel, Chesley, Mateychuk, or Owen Pickering. I think that Preds selecting a defenseman does make sense, especially Liam Bichsel. You guys know I love Liam Bichsel, one of my favorite defensemen of this draft. Big size, but knows how to work with it beautifully in all zones. He uses his size so brilliantly to capture defensemen off the rush, or forwards off the rush, to really create chaos in the offensive zone, to make big hits, open lanes, always loves making big plays, and I do think his skating is really good for a defenseman that size. He has good potential with his offense, and there's room to grow there. To me, I could see him being a solid defensive a top 4 D-man, and I think for the Preds, that'd be a pretty good pick. At number 18, the Dallas Stars select Owen Pickering of the Swift Current Broncos. Dallas has system needs at center and defense, so I could see a lot of options here as Bichsel, Pickering, Mateychuk, or Nazar. The Dallas has system needs at center? They already have Bork. They already have Bork and Wyatt Johnson, and Stankoven could play center if he really needs to. I'm not sure about that analysis, but I could see them definitely going for defensemen. Their prospect pool is pretty weak at that side. Owen Pickering does make sense. I like his size, and although he doesn't use it all too often, I think there's a lot of potential there defensively. His transition game is one of the best in the entire draft. I would not hate that. Number 18 is a solid pick there. I wouldn't be in love, especially since there's Frank Nazar right there and Brad Lambert right there, but you know what? It could be worse. It could be worse. Going on to number 19, the Minnesota Wild select centerman Frank Nazar. That is a beautiful one. The Wild have drafted a few players that look like Nazar in Marco Rossi and Marat Kuzminov, but they clearly value skating and compete in their draft picks recently, and Nazar has that in bunches. I could see Yuri Kulich here as well. Kulich would be interesting at number 19. I think Nazar fits the Wild beautifully. If he's available at number 19, that is one of the steals of the draft alongside Shane Wright at number 4. At number 20, the Washington Capitals select Yuri Kulich. There you go. Kulich has been a player on the rise this season, and many scouts think he's going to go in the top 20. He would add skill, scoring, and two-way ability that the Capitals don't have a ton of in their system. I could see Pickering at number 20 as well. I mean, Kulich is a solid pick at number 20. Oh gosh, my chair just died. Wouldn't be my pick, but I could also see Kulich developing quite well in the cap system as a middle six, probably a fantastic third-line centerman. To me, he brings that positioning. He brings such great awareness in the defensive zone, and I do think, again, his scoring touch is pretty solid. I think at number 20, that's not a bad pick there. It wouldn't be my pick again, especially since they aren't, like, that's the thing for the Caps. I don't know if the center fit is there. They already got Lapierre. They already got Connor McMichael, so I don't really see why they pick another centerman, especially with some of the defensemen available, like Mateychuk. I think that might be their pick at number 20 instead, but I think in just terms of the pure player, I think he'd be good with the Caps. At number 21, the Penguins select Ivan Miroschnichenko. Once we get around 20 or so is when I expect teams are going to start taking hard looks at Miroschnichenko. There's an alleyway of teams like Washington, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Minnesota that could all be looking at a guy who was healthy, when healthy was a top 5 talent, and could help extend their contending windows. I mean, that's the thing. Even when healthy, I'm not sure Miroschnichenko was that good. This season was really just lackluster, and he wasn't really making too much progress in his overall game. But I do think at number 21, that's a risk that the Penguins would definitely be willing to take. And if he does pan out, he will be a top 6 offensive player. And I think for the Pens, that would fit quite well. At number 22, the Anaheim Ducks like Jimmy Snuggerud. I'm kind of surprised that Snuggerud wasn't higher in this list, interestingly enough. Presumably they get a defense on number 10. I can see the Ducks going in several directions at 22, given how many young players they have in the organization. Lambert makes sense here, as does another defenseman like Denton, Mateychuk, or Ryan Chesley. Snuggerud adds a much-needed goal scorer to the system, who also provides size and competes. So that is interesting. I mean, Mateychuk is still available, which is surprising to me. One thing there that is interesting, Lambert also makes sense here. That's a pretty big note there. But also a much-needed goal scorer to the system, who also provides size and competes. Is that not just Mason McTavish? Like, am I going crazy here? And also, a much-needed goal scorer. They already got Sasha Pastujov. To me, Snuggerud isn't going to be this amazing goal scorer, but he's going to be this great physical, competing player who provides one of the best defensive games in the entire draft. Not sure about the goal scoring. I'm not sure about the Ducks needing goal scorers, but at number 22, I think it makes a lot of sense. Number 23, the St. Louis Blues will select Ryan Chesley. Centers and defensemen are a priority for the Blues, and I can see Chesley or Mateychuk at this spot. I think Chesley is a perfectly fine number 23 pick. Definitely developed a lot better in the second half than what I was expecting. And I got to see a lot more of him throughout this year, which changed my opinion. A lot better of a skater than I originally thought. A lot better of an offensive ceiling than I thought. And his defensive game is rock solid. And at that size of 6 foot, I think a lot of teams will be interested. At number 24, the Minnesota Wild get Rutger McGrody. Man, imagine they get Nazar and Rutger McGrody. That'd be insane. It's tough to find out where McGrody lands. Some scouts love him. They see elite compete together with legit skill and scoring touch, and I think he could be a top 15 pick, and some think his skating will keep him out of the NHL. He probably ends up in the 20s, and I see Minnesota as a team that makes sense for him given how much they value compete in their picks. I would love McGrody going to the Minnesota Wild. That is the thing. Skating is the obvious weakness, but I still love Rutger McGrody in almost every other asset. He has just such a dominant pace to him. His positioning is fantastic. His shot is elite at times, and I think his offensive ceiling is amazing. And if he gets a skating coach, again, I don't want to make this comparison because it's a pretty lofty comparison to make, but it still kind of reminds me of Jason Robertson in his draft year, where the biggest complaint was the skating, and we saw Robertson get a lot better in that area, and you saw all the rest of his game just come out in spades throughout the juniors, throughout the AHL and the NHL level. To me, it's a pretty wild comparison, and I don't think McGrody will be that good, but if he does improve his skating, there's a fantastic NHL player there. Now going on to number 25 in the Toronto Maple Leafs, selecting Denton Mateychuk. Toronto typically values skill and hockey sense in their picks, so Isaac Howard, Liam Ogren, and Mateychuk all make sense here. That would be interesting at number 25. My big problem with Mateychuk is actually just like, I think the consistency, and I think what he's trying at WHL level isn't really going to translate nearly as much to the pros, especially once he transitions onto the AHL. But I could see the Leafs looking at that ceiling, looking at that talent, looking at that great just work ethic and solid offensive play, and liking what they see. So I'm not really against that pick, and I could definitely see it happening if Mateychuk drops that low. At number 26, the Montreal Canadiens get Liam Ogren. Ogren could well be gone by 26, but I heard the Habs were high on him a while back. He was highly productive in Sweden's junior league. I mean, at number 26, I think for the Habs, that's a pretty great pick to have. Although taking Slafkovsky instead of Wright would not be my choice. At number 26, Ogren is a fantastic pick. Brings such great physical traits and already has a really just NHL stylized game to him. Works hard, has great defensive awareness, and offensively, there is some potential to be unlocked there. I think he's already a pretty great pro and one of the more mature players of this draft. And at number 26, I think that's a solid pick to make. At number 27, Reed Schaefer. From the Seattle Thunderbirds, Schaefer is a name on the rise after his WHL playoffs as a big bruising winger who can score. I could see him going even higher than this spot. People around the league think the Coyotes want to get bigger and tougher in this draft, and Schaefer would accomplish that in bunches. I'm just going to go past that pick. At number 28, the Buffalo Sabres select Philip Bystedt. The centerman, it's hard to imagine Buffalo walking away with their 3 first-round picks without any natural centers or defensemen. They pick Bystedt in this mock. He's a tall, fast center with some offensive touch. I think Bystedt is solid for them, but that's also the thing. Like, why do they need another centerman? They already got Middlestat, Tage Thompson, and Dylan Cousins. Like, again, it's one of those things where I'm like, am I missing something? Am I just not seeing as many centermen as Pronman is? I don't think Buffalo needs another centerman. It would be nice to have. I think Bystedt would be a really solid bottom 6 guy with good awareness and really solid speed. But at number 28, I think it's a decent one. Not a pick that I would make, but still pretty okay. At number 29, the Edmonton Oilers get Brad Lambert. I mean, interestingly that they want to trade Puljujärvi, yet we'll get another fascinating Finnish prospect prospect. As we get closer to the draft day, I'm not hearing a lot of scouts put their hands up to say, I'd be happy to draft Lambert. So I expect a slide from where most people will expect him to go. So he may be going before 29, but I struggle to find a landing spot for him based on what I know of teams picking value in players. Wanted to get to the mid-20s, though. I feel like a team such as Edmonton here will roll the dice on the high-end skating Lambert brings. He would be so good in Edmonton, man. Absolutely fantastic. And he wouldn't even need to play center there. He could be on the wing where I think there is still some potential there. But his speed and his skating is the best of the draft. His skill level can be so good, although there is some perimeter play that I think will need to be edged out and some obvious defensive and consistency woes. To me, if he got better luck in the league this year, simply put, he would be selected in the top 10. He just got out goalied and had his teammates around him, not really putting the puck in the net with both teams that he played with. And to me, at number 29, that would be another pretty big steal. At number 30, the Winnipeg Jets select Isaac Howard. That's an interesting one. I sent some reservations around the league on Howard, but as we get closer to draft day, I think he'll still be a late first, early second on draft day. I can see Luca Del Belbaluz here if Winnipeg wants another centerman. I think Howard fits pretty well. I mean, that's a Winnipeg Jets type of pick right there. All offense, almost zero defensive play and awareness in the defensive zone, but what he brings in offense and speed and transitional ability is there. And I mean, for the Jets, he'd be a pretty good Winnipeg Jet, I'll just say that. Especially on the power play, he'll fit pretty well. At number 31, the Tampa Bay Lightning select Luca Del Belbaluz. Tampa hasn't picked in the first much recently, so I can see them going in a different direction, such as Del Belbaluz or Tristan Luneau if they want to go for a defenseman. That would be interesting. I mean, I don't have Del Belbaluz in my top 50 because I think there is some massive problems with his projectability on the NHL level. There's some great speed there, fantastic skill, but I also think a lot of what he's doing, a lot of what he's trying to do isn't going to work at all. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work in the OHL, and it's definitely not going to work at the NHL level. And to me, there will be some pretty big changes you have to make to his game before he does get to that pro level. But at the same time, you can still work with that speed and can still work with that skill. So I can see why teams would be interested around that range. And then going on to the last pick of the first round, the Arizona Coyotes with of course the Avalanche first that they got back in the Darcy Kemper trade. They will end up selecting Sam Rinzel. Arizona adds some much needed defensive depth in their system, and their final first round pick in a tall, mobile Rinzel. I could see Maverick Lamoureux or Leno as the pick here too. Yeah, I'd much rather have Rinzel over those two, to be honest. Even though there is some massive issues defensively, and he doesn't quite use his physical traits nearly enough, I do think the mobility of Rinzel is a big factor. His speed can be very solid, and the offensive mind he has there is pretty solid too. Transitionally, he's very efficient as well. At number 32, I don't hate that pick. Pretty solid by the Coyotes. But there is your top 32 by Corey Pronman. Honestly, not as crazy as I was expecting. I think it got a lot more sensible as the list went on, but still the fact that Shane Wright in a mock draft where somebody was talking with scouts and people within the NHL had Wright going number 4 is the most alarming thing, because again, he does end up saying how in this draft, if he isn't picked by the Canadiens, the Devils might not take him and the Coyotes might not take him. Like, that's insane to me. That is absolutely insane to me. I'm always of the belief that you take the best player available. And to me, if I'm New Jersey, like, why wouldn't you want the best center core in the league? Or at least have flexibility there. Like, imagine you could just put Jack Hughes on the wing and you have that choice. Like, to me, it's the type of situation where it would be pretty crazy to go after that, but I could also again see David Jiricek being a fit there if New Jersey doesn't take Slafkovsky or doesn't take Wright. I think Jiricek would fit in pretty beautifully onto that defense, but I just don't know, man. I don't know how they pass up on Wright. And again, the Arizona Coyotes, I don't know how they pass up on Wright. I know Logan Cooley's fantastic, and I know he's a great fit in Arizona and really is what they want, especially alongside Clay and Keller. Those two would be brilliant. But to pass up on the talent that Wright could be and the leader that he can be and the two-way beast that he can be would just be foolish for 3 NHL teams to do that. I mean, we're talking about 4th overall picks, and it's definitely not the same situation, but I mean, 4th overall pick in 2017, Cale Makar. You see just enough teams not taking him, and Shane Wright going to Seattle. To me, that would be a perfect fit, and that would be exactly, if Shane Wright were to drop, that is exactly where I want to see him go, because that is a place where he can prove so many people wrong. Alongside Matty Beniers as a top 2 center core, that would be just heck and back for the Pacific Division. It would be insane. But that is the top 32 for Corey Pronman's mock draft. And again, with what the mock draft is, he talks with a bunch of scouts, talks with a bunch of people throughout the NHL, and gathers the consensus and tries to pick where they might go. So again, a lot of these picks are based off of what people around the NHL are thinking. And if this is what happens on draft day, the top 5 would be easily the craziest top 5 and the most surprising top 5 we might ever see. So this draft is not locked by any means. It's still fluid. It's still open. And this mock draft shows exactly why. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below. What do you guys think of Corey Pronman's 2022 mock draft? What do you agree? What do you disagree with? And what would you change? Do you see these picks happening? Do you see Wright going to Seattle? Let us know your thoughts down below. Of course, share this video with your friends. Get the mock draft out there. Of course, make sure you check out this article if you haven't already for the rest of the 7 rounds. A lot of good content there and a lot of good info, so make sure you don't miss out. And of course, I will click on this card for all my hockey prospect talk right away on the playlist. My name is Nathan. My foot is starting to get numb sitting on this chair, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.